With the second week of Stage 2 now over, it's time once again to return to my weekly power rankings. With every team now playing at least one match, we're starting to get a clearer picture of who will challenge this stage, and which teams are starting to crash and burn with poor performances. So let us begin. Starting as usual with my bottom 5, I've replaced the Florida Mayhem with a new entry, the University of Waterloo at 20. The Washington Justice drop one place to 19. There are big fallers in the Guangzhou Charge, sliding 3 times down to 18. The LA Valiant rise 3 positions to 17, whilst the Atlanta Reign continue their freefall, dropping 4 places to 16. Florida had yet another disappointing week, with 2 convincing losses to Paris and then New York, and after watching the latter, I think they were Academy side off the back of their historic win over Fusion University would have given the Excelsior a better game, hence their drop out of the top 20, with the insertion of the University of Waterloo by popular demand. LA Valiant sees the largest rise of these teams after they secured their first win and followed this up with a spirited performance against the LA Gladiators, with the team finally finding its feet with good team coordination and their top players like Space and Iziaki having impressive series. This moves them away from the bottom for a time, and they could yet rise further if they continue at a similar level in the coming weeks. And it is this rise that sees the Justice fall. Washington actually continue to show their improvement as they are making the series far more competitive, but I'm becoming concerned after hearing their comms on the broadcast about the synergy between Corey and the rest of the side, which could explain why the team often doesn't follow up on moments where he pops off. New to this group after large falls are the Guangzhou Charge and the Atlanta Reign, who have been terrible so far this stage. The Charge must be in an internal crisis, as I cannot explain why their quality players continue to be destroyed week by week, with the team last picking up a map midway through Stage 1. The Reign meanwhile have just seemed to lose coordination throughout the side, following Dufran's departure, which has led to sloppy displays, including their loss to the winless Valiant. And whilst Fried has actually been performing well, I just can't help but feel like the loss of the Pokpo and Dako synergy is one of the main causes of their issues. The next 5 teams are becoming frustrating to comment on, purely as they struggle with inconsistency. At 15 are the Hangzhou Spark up 2, the same as the Houston Outlaws at 14. The Paris Eternal only rise once themselves to 13, so we then have 2 fallers, in the Toronto Defiant at 12 down 4, and the Chengdu Hunters dropping twice to 11. The Spark and Outlaws both made impressive starts to Stage 2, with Hangzhou edging out a win in 5 maps over Boston, whilst Houston arguably gave Vancouver their toughest test since the Stage 1 playoff final. Both sides still look a little shaky on 3-3 comps, which is why for now the rise I'm giving them will be quite steady, but with the performances displayed from players like Crystal and Lynxer in these series, the increase in DPS comps this stage looks to be suiting both teams. Paris again had a strange week that echoed week 1 of this stage, where they started in style in a dominating victory over Florida, before being defeated by Dallas, although this was a much better display on the whole compared to their 4-0 disaster to Chengdu a week ago. Xun has been getting caught out quite a bit on Sombra, but on the whole I've been impressed with the DPS and healing duos for the Eternal, with Grey really stepping up with some great displays. But I am a bit worried by their tanks, who have had the odd moment, but LH Cloudy was dominated by OG in their series, and my concern is that this will be exposed by other opponents moving forward too. Toronto, however, has me far more concerned after a bad week in which they lost both their matches and only picked up 1 map win over Philly. Whilst I'm37 is still trying to find his feet in the lineup, I don't think he's really been holding the team back at all. If anything, I think it's the massive drop in Yakpung's level of performance that's killed the team, as he was heavily focused by the Fusion and Dallas, with him getting separated from his side often. After an impressive first stage, this side needs to address these issues quickly, with tough fixtures coming up, to avoid throwing all their progress up to now away. Lastly, the Hunters' honeymoon start to the stage came crashing down in a convincing defeat to the Dragons, that whilst I'm not going to panic about, has me thinking about why they seem so set in their ways about running certain strategies, and not adapting mid-map like on King's Row, that could become an Achilles heel for them moving forward. Now entering my top 10, at 10 are the Shanghai Dragons after a 3-place rise. The Philadelphia Fusion and Boston Uprising both fall 2 positions to 9 and 8 respectively, whilst the London Spitfire and Dallas Fuel are my big movers positively, as they both are moved up 4 places to 7 and 6. After a very tough schedule in week 1 of Stage 2, The Dragons redeemed themselves with a very impressive display against the red-hot Chengdu Hunters, with the team showing both an adequate level of triple DPS play, with Ding shining, but also a very strong 3-3 led by Gamsu that just had no reply from the Hunters. This is exactly the performance that Shanghai needed to lay the foundations of the rest of its stage, with a very reasonable schedule moving forward to potentially find themselves as an outside playoff shout. Philly and Boston both dropped following disappointing one-map losses to London and Hangzhou. The Fusion took care of Toronto, but that result doesn't look as good anymore, but their loss to the Spitfire was a tough one to take given how close it was. But the same issues were there for this side, that somehow is managing to get by whilst playing average and messy. Until they can show me a really impressive display, they will probably have to remain in this mid-table position. The Uprising meanwhile couldn't conjure their map 5 heroics again, and despite appearing solid on 3-3, looked appalling when running into the Bastion and DPS comps that perhaps suggest that they cannot adapt very well to these newer comps that will be a big weakness for them this stage if not worked on. Both London and Dallas are good weeks, with the Spitfire edging out Philly in a game they perhaps should have closed out quicker, whilst the Fuel looked dominant in their victories over the Defiant and Eternal. This meta clearly seems to suit both sides, and they should definitely be competing for playoff spots come the end of this stage, with the Diva players having explosive weeks, with Fury and the newly acquired Note both making big plays for their sides. I am a little confused as to why Birdring is taking his spot back from guard, but that aside, next week's fixtures will be crucial for both teams in determining how accurate these current standings are. Finally, we have my top 5, which after this week remains unchanged, although I did have a good think about the position of a couple of the sides, one such being the Seoul Dynasty, who I considered dropping after a confusing loss to Vancouver, but whilst expected, concerned me with the decision making of the coaching staff. I understand why they would want to try something new, taking advantage of their full roster, but their decision to run a passive 3-3 into the Titans just makes no sense to me at all, and I think they should have tried to run triple DPS or Sombra Goats instead if they wanted to experiment, which we saw work with Houston. That said, given the opponents they've faced so far, I've kept them here for now, but their fixture against Dallas next week will have a big impact on my rankings. All of the other top teams each recorded wins in rather convincing fashions, with New York and San Francisco looking the most dominant, and with Vancouver tripping a little against triple DPS comps of late, I considered dropping them, but given their schedule has been tougher and they are still yet to taste defeat, I will hold off for now, although next week will be very important for all of these sides. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching my Week 2 Power Rankings, and I hope you enjoyed. Again, thank you guys for all the support of late, as we just reached 400 subscribers, which is great. My preview and predictions for Thursday of Week 3 will be up tomorrow before the matches, so be sure to please like and subscribe so you don't miss out.